The United States troop withdrawal from Syria. When will it happen and what are the implications? Hello, I'm Anand Naidoo and this is The Heat. Last month, the United States President Donald Trump ordered U.S. troops be pulled out of Syria within 30 days. Although there are just some 2,000 American military personnel deployed there, Trump's decision was criticized by some, and his defense secretary, Jim Mattis, resigned in protest. This week, President Trump appeared to back off his position and now says he wants U.S. troops out of Syria, quote, over a period of time.
The Syria situation, I'm the only person in the history of our country that could really decimate ISIS, say we're bringing the troops back home over a period of time. I never said so quickly, but over a period of time. But everybody gives me credit for decimating ISIS.
One major concern is what will happen to the Kurds and their YPG forces once the U.S. troops leave. So far, the Kurdish fighters, supplied with U.S. weapons, have played a major role in battling ISIL. But Turkey considers the YPG terrorists, a branch of Turkey's Kurdish separatist movement, the PKK, and it is threatening to launch an attack against the Kurdish group, which is aligned with the Syrian Defense Forces. Meanwhile, other countries engaged in Syria, such as Russia, have a major interest in the outcome. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Theodore Kattouf. He is a former U.S. ambassador to Syria, and he's now president of an organization called Mideast. Also with us from Milton Keynes in the United Kingdom is Ammar Waqqaf. He is the managing director of Gnosos, an organization focused on Syria and the Middle East. With us here in the studio too is Ali Cinar. He is executive president of the Turkish Heritage Organization. And joining us too is Namo Abdulla. He is the Washington bureau chief for Rudaw, a Kurdish media network. Welcome to all of you to the show. Ambassador, let me start with you. As we've just said, President Trump appears to be backing off that announcement that he wants to move U.S. troops out of Syria very quickly. He says they'll now be withdrawn over a period of time. Why do you think that change?
Well, there was quite an uproar, particularly even in his own party, the Republican Party, and some senior lawmakers, such as Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, had lunch. He had lunch with the president and tried to talk him out of a rapid pullout and inform him of what the reactions could be and what the consequences could be of too hasty a departure.
Right, as you point out, there have been lawmakers who say that they don't want too hasty a departure, but there's also others, like the Democrat who says she wants to run for president, Elizabeth Warren, and she says the U.S. military establishment must explain, Ambassador, what they think winning those wars look like and what the metrics are.
Well, I think the senator has a point. The U.S., when it got into these wars, whether it's Iraq, Afghanistan, never expected, no one expected we would still be in these countries 16, 17 years later, still, and without any real idea of what victory would look like. And indeed, Afghanistan, we're not discussing that today, but looks more grim than it has in a long time. Syria, as your viewers know, was a controversial issue in this country when Obama was in office. And Obama was very hesitant to commit much in the way of U.S. troops and resources to the Syrian conflict. So right now, we probably should get out, but it's how we get out and how we protect our allies that you mentioned, the YPG, the other Kurds, Arab tribal forces, that's really important, how we do it.
Right. Let me go to Ammar Waqqaf in Milton Keynes in the United Kingdom. Ammar Waqqaf, what is the Syrian view on U.S. troops being in the country?
I think they would welcome it. I think they probably in Damascus think that the United States realized, or probably realized some time ago, but it's now the time to do something about it, that their presence in northeastern Syria would only fuel the Arabs against the Kurds, because the Arabs would always look at American deployment as enabling the Kurds to gain more of the share or have more influence. Also, or moreover, probably the United States is looking worried about the headways Turkey up till very recently a very close ally in the Middle East to the United States, the headways they're making with the likes of Russia and Iran, three countries that they are so united against the American project over there that they've issued a public statement saying that they would work against it. So the United States probably now thinks, this is probably the rationale in Damascus, that before seeing body bags go back to the United States, soldiers in body bags, they would want to do something about it, and B, probably creating a vacuum would reduce the state of unity that the Turks, the Russians and the Iranians are feeling at the moment. The Syrians would welcome this, obviously, because it would reduce all the complications of reuniting that part with Syria proper, and you know, cooling the heads of some parties within the Kurds of demanding some, you know, over-the-top, of making over-the-top demands about for federalism and what have you. So they think it's a step in the right direction.
Okay, Namo, Abdulla, President Trump says he wants to take the troops out, but at the same time he also says he wants to protect Kurds. What are the Kurds making of this?
Well, the very withdrawal of the U.S. forces from Syria, basically the biggest victim of this decision will be the Kurds in Syria, because they have been siding with the United States. They are basically seen by a lot of people who are anti-American in that country as traitors in the first place. Of course, ISIS is not yet defeated, and the Kurds are also being threatened by Turkey, that it says it will invade parts of Syria, because as you said in the introduction, Turkey views YPG as an offshoot of the PKK, which is designated as a terrorist organization. So the Kurds will be a victim of this. So what is interesting to me, actually, is that this decision is not popular even here in the United States. People such as Lindsey Graham that you referred to on the right side of the political spectrum, and people all the way to the left, like Noam Chomsky, he's probably the most leftist political activist, they both agree that this is a bad decision. Because just look at the actors that have welcomed this decision: Assad, Russia, Iran, ISIS.
Ali Cinar, will Turkey target the Kurdish fighters?
They will, because Turkey recognized, not only Turkey, United States and European Union recognize PKK as a terrorist organization. Even General Thompson, former Ambassador James Jeffrey, and also former Secretary of Defense Carter said that PKK and YPG are linked together. So Turkey has two objectives: one, protect the borders, and second, eliminate the terrorists in Syria. So Turkey is ready to have an operation against YPG. I don't call it as a Syrian Kurds, because there are other Kurdish groups in the region, and also fight against ISIS. Turkey had 14 major attacks by ISIS, lost 304 citizens. So Turkey has a big threat from ISIS. So there's a misperception that Turkey will not fight against ISIS. However, Turkey had suffered by ISIS. So Turkey will continue fight against YPG, ISIS, and other terror elements in order to protect borders. So I think Turkey is ready to cooperate with United States and other allies. And it's very clear that Turkey will go after whatever needs to be. And I want to be more clear, without Turkey, there is no solution in Syria. So everybody needs Turkey's cooperation in the region.
Ambassador, doesn't that put the United States in a very difficult position to say we want to take our troops out, but we also want to protect the Kurds? I mean, the alternative would be to seek some kind of, I guess, agreement with the Turks to say you won't attack the Kurds.
No, I think you're right. If we want to leave with any honor, we have to try to make an arrangement as best we can, working with our Kurdish and Arab tribal allies, to ensure that a degree of safety for them. As was pointed out, some of them are viewed as traitors for cooperating with the United States. And while I'm not in favor of leaving U.S. troops there forever, as our guest in London pointed out, U.S. troops are very vulnerable there, and we don't want to see them coming home in body bags. we have to use what diplomatic leverage we have. And having troops in Syria may actually be less leveraged than having forces nearby, including the ability to conduct airstrikes or even special operation forces in eastern Syria. So I think if Trump does not act hastily, there is still room to talk with our Turkish friends and tell them maybe it's not acceptable to just willy-nilly go into Turkey. And I also think I also think that ISIS will be handled by others. I don't think Russia and Bashar al-Assad...
In fact, President Trump has made that point. You know, we heard at the introduction to this show him saying that he should get credit for defeating ISIL, and he said that other countries like Iran and Russia should now pick up that slack. Let's listen to part of what he had to say.
The place was a mess. It was terrible. But we also have to have other countries fighting ISIS. You know, we're helping by doing this. People say Russia and Iran, we're helping them. Everything we do over there helps them. They don't like seeing us leave because we're knocking out ISIS. Let them fight ISIS too.
So the president does have a point there, doesn't he?
He has a point. The fact of the matter is Bashar al-Assad used ISIS and other radical Islamist groups as a foil to say it's either me or the deluge. And if now the Russians, Bashar, Iran all have incentives with us gone to do what they can both in Iraq and Syria to clean up ISIS. So I'm less concerned about that than I am with our allies and with the fact that we don't want to see Syria become anarchic with all sorts of different players going in there.
Namo, Abdulla?
It's not just what will happen to the Kurds that's concerning, but also we should all ask ourselves whether the United States went to Syria in order to partially defeat ISIS and just withdraw. Was that just the whole reason for the U.S. Entering Syria in the first place? Of course not. The United States has been opposed to the Assad regime, and much of the international community is opposed to the Assad regime because of the atrocities it has committed against its own people. So just think about it. If the United States troops withdraw from Syria, there will be almost no opposition left to the Assad regime in Syria. The Assad regime has so far refused to negotiate or to compromise to other so-called Free Syrian Army elements because they have no leverage. The only leverage that the United States can have diplomatically in a post-ISIS negotiation over the future of Syria will be if they have some military presence. Diplomacy without the backing of the military basically will be meaningless.
Ammar Waqqaf, what do you make of what you've just heard, and what is the risk of an ISIL re-emergence once U.S. troops leave?
Well, ISIL technically relied on lots of the tribes in that region, in the northeastern Euphrates in Syria, as it did in western Iraq. A lot of tribal forces over there swore allegiance to Daesh. They wanted money. You know, there was an upheaval inside them, so probably new elements wanted to gain influence. Nowadays, I think that project is dead, at least in lots of minds and hearts across that region. What would keep it alive is the feeling of the Arabs over there, basically the Arabs, that they are under occupation. The withdrawal of the United States would reduce that feeling. The Syrian state, as we understand the official statements that are coming out from Damascus, describe, for example, Turkish forces' withdrawal from Manbij as towards bringing life back to normality in those areas of Syria. So they're looking forward to restoring those parts of Syria and bringing life back to normality as they see it. Obviously, there are people who object to that. But at the end of the day, the end game in Syria that everybody seems to agree upon is that Syria should go back as one state. How to gain influence inside Syria is what concerns various parties. For example, now Turkey would be interested very much in a return on its investment. They've backed a lot of groups called, so-called, for example, the Free Syrian Army or whatever, the Euphrates Shield, so on, olive branch operations, and they would probably want to have those people have a say in future Syrian politics. The Syrian state might not want to have that or have none of that, because they don't want a precedent where a group of Syrians might want to tell a neighboring country or a superpower, please come and help us, give us weapons, and then we can change the politics in Damascus.
All right.
So there is a lot of play in that area.
Ali Cinar, how does, as Ammar Waqqaf put it, Turkey get a return on its investment?
I mean, I agree with him because Turkey is right now hosting 3.5 million Syrian refugees, including 300,000 Syrian Kurds. So there are Syrian Kurds living in Turkey right now as a refugee. Since Turkey has a trade with Syria in the past, I mean, cultural trade, security relations, so Turkey would like to see Syria as a one state.
Right.
So I totally agree with the guest. But we need to remember also YPG has a relationship with Assad. After President Trump's decision, YPG officials threatened that they might free ISIS terrorists on the field. In addition, yesterday President Trump said YPG is working with Iran selling oil. So we need to understand what YPG's agenda besides fighting against Daesh. But in Turkey, as I said, one, unification in Syria and solidarity. Otherwise, Turkey already spent $60 billion for Syrian refugees, and once time all refugees go back to their home country.
I think Turkey, President Erdogan, what he is doing nowadays, honestly, he's doing a political game. He's playing a political game. You know, Turkey is going to have elections next year, and of course, the economy in Turkey is in free fall. And President Erdogan wants to shift the attention, domestic attention, away from the economy to security, to tell his own citizens that, look, we are faced with a much graver threat, which is the terrorist threat in Syria, and then the economy can be fixed later.
Ali Cinar, let me ask you very quickly, I've got to take a break, but very quickly, if you could tell me, would Turkey agree to some kind of agreement with the United States, some kind of pact that it won't attack YPG forces?
So next week, National Security Advisor Bolton, Joint Chief Staff General Dunford will be in Turkey to talk about these issues. What will be the next step cooperating with United States and Turkey? So I think next week it will be very critical to see the next steps.
All right, we need to take a quick break. Much more on Syria and how the withdrawal of US troops may impact it when we return. Stay with us here on The Heat.